What is up, everybody? Today I'm going to be going over the Tuscaloosa Regional. This is, of course, of the Alabama Crimson Tide, as well as the Oklahoma State Cowboys, USC Upstate in South Carolina, as well as Alabama State. I can't wait to talk about this regional. So many fun teams in different areas. It's going to be awesome. So of course I'm going to start with Alabama. I'm not gonna lie, a weird team. A weird team. I mean, they ended up being the seventh overall seed, which is good enough to host a super regional. For me, I didn't even have them in a regional, to be honest. I didn't have them hosting at all, which is kind of crazy that they ended up getting going so high. Alabama's a good team. I'm not gonna argue with that. I mean, they went sorry, they went 37 and 19 in the SEC, 18 and 12, a pretty good record overall. The best thing about them is their defense. They've done really well overall. They're also super streaky, which could be for the better, could be for the worst. I tend to lean teams that are streaky. I like if they're a three or a four seed rather than a one seed because it feels like as good as Alabama could be, are they a national championship contender? Maybe, but they also just could fall flat on their face in their own regional, which could be interesting to see. Some of their big wins: Ole Miss, Auburn, Florida. That Auburn one really strikes me. Obviously, Auburn's such a good team. The fact that Alabama was able to take them down in the fashion that they did, pretty cool to see on that rivalry week. Of course, such a great rivalry that is. They also lost to Kentucky, though, who just snuck into the tournament. They lost to Tennessee, who kind of snuck into the tournament. I mean, Tennessee's a pretty decent team. And Arkansas, who, of course, I think should have been in hosting a regional, but whatever. Alabama, they've gotten some good wins. They've lost to a couple of questionable teams, but I'm not going to say they've had any like terrible losses. But of course, on their roster, they have Justin LeBron, who is one of the best players in the entire country. So much pop, so good at stealing bases, so much swag. I love Justin LeBron. He's such a joy to watch play. He's so good in the field as well, which I love. They have Brady Neal as well, who's another really good player. And they also have Tyler Fay as their ace on defense. He's done a great job. He's kind of the leader of what's brought Alabama this really good defense this year. Next up is Oklahoma State. The Cowboys have had a pretty underrated year, 37 and 20. In a Big 12 conference, that's a little bit underrated now. I mean, 37 and 20 obviously is a great record. When you think about the Big 12, I mean, that's actually pretty legit. I'm not going to lie, for a two seed. They went 18 and 12 in the conference. Not amazing, but they definitely did a pretty good job. They ended up being one of the top teams in the conference. The main thing to note about them, their offense is great to watch. They have some really good players. And they're also really streaky, similar to Alabama. If you're a two seed, I don't love being streaky, but I also don't hate it because like you're gonna have to, get hot at the right time if you do want to beat a team like Alabama or just a regional host in general. When it comes to some of their games, they ended up beating Cincinnati, TCU, and Arizona State. Some pretty iconic wins, especially Arizona State and Cincinnati. Some pretty good teams. However, they lost to BYU, who's not in the tournament, Kansas State, who's not in the tournament, and UCF, who isn't considered like a top team in college baseball. It kind of shows, I mean, it's kind of been a trend with a lot of these teams, but a couple really bad losses for Oklahoma State, but a couple wins that showcase they can kind of beat anybody, they can kind of lose to anybody. It really just depends on the given day. But what makes me absolutely love this Cowboys squad is in their roster, some of the players that they have are unbelievable. Colin Ritchie, 29 home runs, 73 RBIs, one of the best players in the entire country when it comes to just strictly stats. I mean, 29 home runs is unbelievable. That's got to be top five in the country when it comes to the entire nation. Unbelievable player he is. You probably think, oh, they have such a good offense. They have Richie who just does everything for them. No, how about their defense? Ethan Lunt, 127 strikeouts this year. Also one of the best in the entire country. It's just unbelievable to see just some of these highs they have on both sides of the ball and the offense that they have as a whole. I really like this Oklahoma State squad, I'm sorry. And I do think that they can win this regional. USC Upstate is back in the tournament. They were in it last year. I don't believe they did too much noise, but they are 33 and 28 on the year, finished 13 and 11 in their conference. Not something that really shines off the page, especially for a three seed, but they've had a pretty good year. They're really hot at the right time, which I love. They also have a good offense similar to Oklahoma State, which I think is pretty important to note. But the one thing I will say about USC Upstate, no iconic wins, and some of these losses are really bad. I'll read out to you some of these series losses. Georgia Southern, that's not terrible. I'll give it to them. But Longwood, that's a bad series loss. Winthrop, that's a really bad series loss. Samford, I mean, it's just a couple series that they wish they could have got back. And they certainly are, I think, a better team than some of those losses that they've gotten. When it comes to their roster, they have a couple good players. They have Wiley Waters and Johnny Sweeney, a couple guys that give them a little bit of an extra pop. But unfortunately, I just think that some of these series losses just ultimately are too much to put them in too much consideration for winning this regional. What about Alabama State though? They finished 34 and 21, which is actually pretty solid. 20 and 10 in their conference. Just shows that I mean, when it comes to, Alabama State season compared to USC Upstate, I think you can make a genuine case for Alabama State to even, potentially be this 3 seed. They're also really hot, just like USC Upstate, which is important to note. But unfortunately, what kind of takes them down a little bit is the fact that they've lost to everybody that's honestly just pretty good in general. They haven't beaten anybody iconic. They haven't beaten anybody great. They haven't really beaten anybody important, and that's definitely going to be a problem. They do have two pretty good power hitters, though, in Trey Calloway and Jackson Williams, which does help them out a little bit. But like I mentioned before, I mean, they lost a series to Florida A&M. They lost a series to Valparaiso. They lost a series to Bethune-Cookman. I'm sorry, but if you want to win a regional in college baseball at this point in the year, losing some of those games is just or series, not even just games. It doesn't feel right to pick a team like that to win such a tough regional like Tuscaloosa is going to be. But I'm actually going to pick Oklahoma State to win this regional over Alabama. I'm sure it's going to make some Crimson Tide fans mad, but I really do think that Oklahoma State is the best team at the right time in this regional. They're streaky. I think it's better for Oklahoma State to be streaky than for Alabama because I really do think this team can go on a run. They have some really good wins, which I like a lot. I will say though, I do think they can kind of fall flat on their face, and I do think they could lose to like an Alabama State or something like that. But regardless, I mean, they have so much pop. They have a good ace. They have just so much going for them. And yeah, I mean, their offense, I think, just takes them to another level to the point where I really do think they are going to beat Alabama in this regional. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the regional preview. I have a bunch more coming soon, so make sure to stay tuned on the channel, and I can't wait for this regional to start on Friday.